Chapter 10. Dearest Mademoiselle Buddenbrook, for how long must the undersigned exist without a glimpse of his enchantress? These few lines will tell you that the vision has never ceased to hover before his spiritual eye, that never has he during these interminably anxious months ceased to think of the precious afternoon in your parental salon, when you let fall a blushing promise which filled me with bliss unspeakable. Since then long weeks have flown, during which you have retired from the world for the sake of calm and self-examination. May I now hope that the period of probation is past? The undersigned permits himself, dearest mademoiselle, to send the enclosed ring as an earnest of his undying tenderness, with the most tender compliments, and devotedly kissing your hand, I remain your obedient servant, Grunlick. Does this guy not get the hint? Dear Papa, how angry I've been. I had the enclosed letter and ring just now from Grunlick, and my head aches fearfully from excitement. I don't know what else to do but send them both to you. He simply will not understand me, and what he so poetically writes about the promise isn't in the least true, and I beg you emphatically to make it immediately perfectly clear to him that I am 1,000 times less able to say yes to him than I was before, and that he must leave me in peace. He makes himself ridiculous. To you, my dearest father, I can say that I have bound myself elsewhere, to one who adores me and whom I love more than I can say. Oh, Papa, I could write pages to you. I mean Herr Morton Schwarzkopf, who is studying to be a physician, and who as soon as that happens will ask for my hand. I know that it is the rule of the family to marry a businessman, but Morton belongs to the other section of respectable men, the scholars. He is not rich, which I know is important to you and Mamma, but I must tell you that, young as I am, I have learned that riches do not make everyone happy. With 1,000 kisses, your obedient daughter, Antony. P.S. I find the ring very poor gold and too narrow. My dear Tony, your letter duly received. As regards to its contents, I must tell you that I did not fail to communicate them to Herr Grunlick. The rest was of such a nature as to shock me very much. You are a grown girl, and at a serious time of life, so I need not scruple to tell you the consequences that a frivolous step of yours may draw after it. Herr Grunlick then burst into despair at my announcement, declaring that he loved you so dearly and could so little console himself for your loss, that he would be in a state to take his own life if you remain firm in your resolve. This Grunlick isn't he's a gaslighter and a manipulator and a narcissist. You know why? Because, on a side personal note, I dated one of those kinds of people who, when I tried to break up with them, they told me that they were going to kill themselves. And that person was an abuser. Fuck Herr Grunlick. As I cannot take seriously what you write me of another attachment, I must beg you to master your excitement over the ring and consider everything again very carefully. It is my Christian conviction, my dear daughter, that one must have regard for the feelings of others. Oh, fuck Christians too. We do not know that you may not be made responsible by the Most High Judge if a man whose feelings you have coldly and obstinately scorned should trespass against his own life. But the thing, he's not saying that God's going to judge her. He just said, we don't know if God will judge you because you turned down a man you hated and he took his own life. What the fuck? Excuse me. But the thing I have so often told you by word of mouth, I must recall again to your remembrance, and I am glad to have the occasion to repeat it in writing. For though speech is more vivid and has the more immediate effect, the written word has the advantage that it can be chosen with pains and fixed in a form well weighted and calculated by the writer, to be read over and over again with proportionate effect. My child, we are not born for that which, with our short-sighted vision, we reckon to be our own small personal happiness. We are not free, separate, and independent entities, but like links in a chain, and we could not by any means be what we are without those who went before us and showed us the way, by following the straight and narrow path, not looking to right or left. Your path, it seems to me, has lain all these weeks sharply marked out for you, and you would not be my daughter, nor the granddaughter of your grandfather who rests in God, nor a worthy member of our own family, if you really have it in your heart, alone, willfully, and light-heartedly to choose your own unregulated path. Your mother, Thomas, Christian, and I beg you, my dear Antony, to weigh all this in your heart. Mademoiselle Youngman and Clara greet you affectionately. Likewise Clotilde, who has been the last several weeks with her father at Thankless. We all rejoice at the thought of embracing you once more. With unfailing affection, your loving father. He doesn't sound loving or having unfailing affection. Chapter 11. It rained in streams. Heaven, earth, and sea were in flood, while the driving wind took the rain and flung it against the panes, as though not drops, but brooks were flowing down and making them impossible to see through. Complaining and despairing voices sounded in the chimney. When Morton Schwarzkopf went out into the veranda with his pipe shortly after dinner to look at the sky, he found there a gentleman with long, narrow, yellow-checked ulster and a gray hat. Oh my God, I hope this is not the man. A closed carriage, its top glistening with wet, its wheels clogged with mud, was before the door. Morton stared irresolutely into the rosy face of the gentleman. He had mutton chop whiskers that looked as though they had been dressed with gold paint. What the fuck? Grunlick went to see Morton? Who the hell told Grunlick about Morton? What? The gentleman in the ulster looked at Morton as one looks at a servant, blinking gently without seeing him, and said in a soft voice, "Is Air Pilot Captain Schwarzkopf at home?" Yes, stammered Morton. "I think my father." Hereupon the gentleman fixed his eyes upon him. They were as blue as a goose's. "Are you Herr Morton Schwarzkopf?" he asked. "Yes, sir," answered Morton, trying to keep his face straight. "Ah, indeed," remarked the gentleman in the ulster, and went on. "Have the goodness to announce me to your father, young man. My name is Grunlick." Morton led the gentleman through the veranda, opened for him the right hand. I cannot. This is the shock of the century of this book, that Grunlick went to see Morton. I never would have expected that. Oh my gosh. Morton led the gentleman through the veranda, opened for him the right-hand door that led into the office, and went back into the sitting room to tell his father. Then the youth sat down at the round table, resting his elbow on it, and seemed, without noticing his mother, who was sitting at the dark window mending stockings, to busy himself with the wretched news sheet, which had nothing in it except the announcements of the silver wedding of Consul so-and-so. Tony was resting in her room. Oh, he went to the house to get Tony. The pilot captain entered his office with the air of a man satisfied with his meal. His uniform coat stood open over the usual white waistcoat. His face was red, and his ice-gray beard coldly set off against it. His tongue traveled about agreeably among his teeth, making his good mouth take the most extraordinary shapes. He bowed shortly, jerkily, with the air of one conforming to the conventions as he understood them. "Good afternoon," he said. "At your service." Herr Grunlich, on his side, bowed with deliberation, although one corner of his mouth seemed to go down. He said softly, "Ahem." The office was rather a small room, the walls of which had wainscoting for a few feet and then simple plaster. Curtains, yellow with smoke, hung before the window, on whose panes the rain beat unceasingly. On the right of the door was a rough table covered with papers. Above it, a large map of Europe and a smaller one of the Baltic Sea fastened to the wall. From the middle of the ceiling hung the well-cut model of a ship under full sail. The captain made his guest take the sloping sofa, covered with crackled oilcloth, that stood opposite the door, and made himself comfortable in a wooden armchair, folding his hands across his stomach, while Herr Grunlich, his ulster tightly buttoned up, his hat on his knees, sat bolt upright on the edge of the sofa. "My name is, I repeat, Grunlich," he said, "from Hamburg. I may say by way of introduction that I am a close business friend of Herr Buddenbrook. Servant Herr Grunlich, pleased to make your acquaintance. Won't you make yourself comfortable? Have a glass of grog after your journey. I'll send right into the kitchen. I must permit myself to remark that my time is limited. My carriage is waiting, and I am really obliged to ask for the favor of a few words with you." "At your service," repeated Herr Schwarzkopf, taken aback. There was a pause. "Herr Captain," began Herr Grunlich, wagging his head with determination and throwing himself back on his seat. After this he was silent again, and by way of enhancing the effect of his address, he shut his mouth tight, like a purse drawn together with strings. "Herr Captain," he repeated, and went on without further pause. "The matter about which I have come to you directly concerns the young lady who has been for some weeks stopping in your house." "Mademoiselle Buddenbrook?" asked the consul. "Precisely," assented Herr Grunlich. He looked down at the floor and spoke in a voice devoid of expression. Hard lines came out at the corners of his mouth. "I am obliged to inform you," he went on in a sing-song tone, his sharp eyes jumping from one point in the room to another and then to the window, "that some time ago I proposed for the hand of Mademoiselle Buddenbrook. I am in possession of the fullest confidence of both parents, and the young lady herself has unmistakably given me a claim to her hand, though no betrothal has taken place in form." "You don't say! God keep us!" said Herr Schwarzkopf in a sprightly tone. I have never heard that before. Congratulations, Grunlick. She's a good girl, genuine good stuff. Thank you for the compliment, said Herr Grunlick coldly. He went on in his high sing-song. What brings me to you on this occasion, my good Herr Captain, is the circumstance that certain difficulties have just arisen, and these difficulties appear to have their source in your house. He spoke the last words in a questioning tone, as if to say, can this disgraceful state of things be true, or have my ears deceived me? Herr Schwarzkopf answered only by lifting his eyebrows as high as they would go, and clutching the arms of his chair with his brown, blonde-felled fisherman's hands. Yes, this is the fact, so I am informed, Herr Grunlick said with dreary certitude. I hear that your son, studiosus medicinae, I am led to understand, has allowed himself, of course unconsciously, to encroach upon my rights. Ew, disgusting. I hear that he has taken advantage of the present visit of the young lady to extract certain promises from her. What? Shouted the pilot captain, gripping the arms of his chair and springing up. That we can soon see. With 2 steps he was at the door, tore it open, and shouted down the corridor in a voice that would have outroared the wildest seas. Meta, Morton, come in here, both of you. I shall regret it exceedingly if the assertion of my prior right runs counter to your fatherly hopes, Herr Captain. Diedrich Schwarzkopf turned and stared, with his sharp blue eyes in their wrinkled setting, straight into the stranger's face, as though he strove in vain to comprehend his words. Sir, he said. Then, with a voice that sounded as though he had just burnt his throat with hot grog, I'm a simple sort of man, and I don't know much about landlubbers' tricks and skin games. But if you mean, maybe, that, well, sir, you can just set it down right away that you've got on the wrong tack and are making a pretty bad miscalculation about my fatherly hopes. I know who my son is, and I know who Mademoiselle Buddenbrook is, and there's too much respect and too much pride in my carcass to be making any plans of the sort you've mentioned. And now, he roared, jerking his head toward the door, it's your turn to talk, boy. You tell me what this affair is. What is this I hear, hey? Frau Schwarzkopf and her son stood in the doorway, she innocently arranging her apron, he with the air of a hardened sinner. Herr Grunlick did not rise at their entrance. He waited, erect and composed, on the edge of the sofa, buttoned up tighter in his ulster. I'm sorry, I was confused who was speaking. So you've been behaving like a silly fool, bellowed the captain to Morton. The young man had his thumb stuck between the buttons of his jacket. He scowled and puffed out his cheeks defiantly. Yes, father, he said. Fraulein Buddenbrook and I. Well then, I'll just tell you you're a perfect tomfool, a young ninny, and you'll be packed off tomorrow for Göttingen. Tomorrow, understand? It's all damned childish nonsense and rascality into the bargain. Good heavens, Dietrich, said Frau Schwarzkopf, folding her hands. You can't just say that, you know. Who knows? She stopped. She said no more, but it was plain from her face that a mother's beautiful dream had been shattered in that moment. There's our timer. I'm going to read the rest of the chapter because we're almost at the end. That is so sad. She's been hoping this whole time that they would fall in love. Would the gentleman like to see the young lady? Schwarzkopf turned to Herr Grenlich and spoke in a harsh voice. She is upstairs in her room asleep, Frau Schwarzkopf said with feeling. I regret, said Herr Grenlich, and he got up, obviously relieved. But I repeat that my time is limited, and the carriage waits. I permit myself, he went on, describing with his hat a motion in the direction of Herr Schwarzkopf, to acknowledge to you, Herr Captain, my entire recognition of your manly and high-principled bearing. I salute you. Goodbye. Dietrich Schwarzkopf did not offer to shake hands with him. He merely gave a jerky bow with the upper part of his heavy figure that had an air of saying, this is the proper thing, I suppose. Herr Grenlich, with measured tread, passed between Morton and his mother and went out the door. My God, I'm so mad. I'm so mad. My blood is boiling right